Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another live session. And as usual, we're going to do some tests. Just going to check if everything is working here with Facebook and YouTube. And yeah, it looks like Facebook is okay. Just going to make sure everything is working. Just going to check in Instagram. Can you guys hear me all right in Instagram? Looks like Instagram is working. Excuse me. Excuse me. In YouTube, just going to double check in YouTube if it's working. Yeah, YouTube is working. All right, so it looks like everything is working. So I will start very soon with the content. And then we can start. Yeah, it's all good. I'll get my notes and we can start tonight's conversation. So hi everyone and welcome to another live session. This is live session number 137. Yes, it means that for the last 137 weeks, I am here every week talking about a subject regarding to the engineering qualification, validation, or jobs as a professional engineer here in Australia and other engineering subjects as well. So welcome everybody, and tonight we're going to have an open chat about getting your professional job as an engineer here in Australia. So I would appreciate if you can send already some questions or your doubts or something that you would like to know about getting a job here in Australia as an engineer, and we can have an open chat. If I don't really have questions coming from the audience, I've got some topics that I would like to cover as well. So, but first, for those that don't know me, my name is Gerson Ida, and I'm the founder of the website www.engineersinaustralia.com, a website that I created back in 2019, April 2019, to help you in your journey to validate your engineering qualification here in Australia, and also to share content of value about other things related to engineering, especially engineering jobs, and how make it easier for you to enter in the professional market here in Australia. And also, as part of my project, Engineers in Australia, I promote a free online workshop where in 1 week I teach you everything you need to know to start your application to validate your engineering qualification here in Australia. So if you want to register, I will paste the link in the comments. Just paste it in YouTube. I'm going to paste in Instagram, and also I'm going to paste in Facebook. So I'm not sure why, but in Facebook I get some messages that I can't do a few things. So I will try here in my iPad. HTTPS. Where's the... No. I'll put www. dot engineersinaustralia.com/free workshop. Yeah, so if you haven't registered yet, very simple. You just need to click on the link and then just put your name and email address and submit, and that's it. You are already registered to the workshop. The next event is going to start on the 6th of March, which is a Sunday, 10 a.m. Brisbane time. And it will be a full week of events. So we will start with the opening webinar. There will be videos that I'm going to send by email. There will be live sessions on Instagram. I will be giving away free consulting services during those live sessions as well. And there will also be live sessions like this one. All right. Okay, so I would like to know, are you guys from where? Which country are you guys from? And what type of engineer are you? And I think that I don't know if there's any questions already, but if you have questions, please send it to me and I will be answering those ones. And also, are you an international student? Because I've got my audience, a lot of my audience, they are international students. And I know that's very difficult to get a professional job as a international student, because I used to be an international student myself when I arrived here back in 2005. So let's get down to the business now. And why do I think I'm qualified to talk about how to get a professional job as an engineer? Well, first, because obviously I got already few jobs as a professional engineer here in Australia, and I've been working as a professional engineer since 2008. I had a professional job back in 2005 until 2008, sort of related to engineering. I was a technical consultant for business and project management, delivering training and consultancy for construction companies as well. But as an engineer, professional engineer, my first job here in Australia was in 2008. And since 2008, I already recruited and hired dozens and dozens of project managers and engineers. I already sat in recruitment panels, usually the chair of recruitment panels, and recruited already many engineers and project managers. And I've seen everything: good applications, average applications, not so good applications. And I'm here to assist and help and share information about how you can improve your chances to get a job as an engineer here in Australia. Because one thing is for you to come as an engineer without, for example, validation of your qualification, then you ended up getting eventually your validation of your qualification. And once you get your validation, you increase your chances because you become more competitive in your field, and you may have better opportunities to even be shortlisted for professional interviews and then be closer to get a job as an engineer. So, what I'm going to talk about. First of all, I'd like to talk about what to include in your CV. First of all, your CV, your curriculum vitae, is certainly very important. It sells your experience, it sells your professional profile, it sells your objective as a professional. And a lot of people, they just have like generic CVs, and that's not a good idea. Every time that you find a position, you find a job that you want to apply for, you need to customize and tailor your curriculum vitae. Some of you may have lots of experiences in different areas. So when you're applying for a specific job in one specific area, the other experiences in other areas, they are not so important. One, because CVs sometimes they can have some limitation of pages, so you cannot really have 10 pages of CV. Majority of applications, they'll limit to probably 3 pages. So if you have lots and lots of experiences, you need to tailorize your CV to the field that you are applying for. Also about results that you have achieved in your previous work experiences. It's very important not to copy and paste your position description of the job that you did, but also include results. It's very important to include what you have achieved. That shows competency in your field. Also in CVs, it's important to include, sorry, I've got a runny nose. It's very important to include your professional profile. Nowadays, at least in the organization that I work for, when we are recruiting professionals, we also recruiting for attitude. So recruiting for behaviors, because sometimes the technical skills or the hard skills, you can develop and train and improve. But some of the soft skills, they're very difficult to train and very difficult to improve if the person doesn't really have it. So if you have very good soft skills, especially in terms of initiative, positive attitude, innovation, ingenuity, those sort of qualities, it's very important to highlight those. The other thing that it's important for you to increase your chances to get a job here in Australia is to know where to search for jobs. Obviously, there are those websites that they are the standard ones, for example, seek.com.au or indeed.com.au or career1.com.au. Those ones are the standard job seeker sites here in Australia. But it's also important for you to look for jobs. Let's say, for example, here in Brisbane, I live in Brisbane, Queensland, we've got a very large project happening, which is called Cross River Rail. So usually those large projects, they have their own website, of course. You can, let's see if we can do like a mini tutorial, and I will show you what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so I open up a new page. Let's find Cross River Rail. So Cross River Rail, there's a web page there, and you can see that there is jobs and contracts. So when you go there, I don't know if there are jobs or not here, but there's certainly, let's say here about jobs with major contractors. You can register. You can register now for trades and labor roles, staff and support roles in different areas. There's the Cross River Rail Delivery Authority. Looks like there is an Alliance Governance Lead opportunity. And here, if you have a business, you can probably then register your interest there. So I'm just want to say, and that's just an example, that you can, if you know of big jobs Here in Brisbane, the Brisbane Metro is another big job as well that's happening. You can go to the website and then register your interest, put your CV and everything else in there. And in large companies, they also have their own job web page, so you can go there and register. So don't just stick with the normal seek.com.au or indeed.com.au, although sometimes those jobs will be there as well, but you got to think a little bit outside of the square. All right, I'll just go back to my notes. And also it's important to talk about key points for you to have in your cover letter. Just going to check here. There's a question here in YouTube from Murillo. How difficult, thanks very much Murillo for your question. How difficult is to get a job as a civil engineer in Australia? Yeah, thanks for the question. And I'd say that the difficulty will be with obviously your profile. There are certain things that can make more difficult or less difficult. Obviously, it's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would have a job as a civil engineer or a mechanical engineer. But there are a few factors that will make your job hunt more difficult or less difficult. First of all, obviously, is your visa. Visa is something that majority of the companies will ask you a visa that allows you to work, and usually work full-time, 40 hours a week. But there are exceptions. There are companies that they have sometimes a part-time position or a temporary position that can allow you to work 20 hours a week under an international student visa, for example. So it's a matter of searching, obviously, and finding that opportunity and applying for that type of work. Also, another important thing that can make your life more difficult or less difficult, one is the visa, another one obviously is where you are. If you are here in Australia, it's going to be much easier or less difficult. If you are still in your home country, perhaps if you are in Brazil, or if you are in Colombia or in the Philippines, there's always relocation costs. There's always obviously visa costs. Even if you have a permanent visa, but then companies, they need to relocate and can cost $10, $15, $20, $25,000 to relocate somebody from your home country to Australia. And now with COVID, there's a little bit of a complication. You got to have the tickets usually now are more expensive. Probably to relocate your staff is going to be more expensive as well. So those costs will add up. And there's still plenty of supply here in Australia. So unless it's a very specific position as a civil engineer and your expertise is really very, very difficult to find here in Australia, if you're going to relocate from, let's say, another country to Australia, it's going to be very difficult. But if you are here, obviously, it's less difficult. Another point that can make your life less difficult is if you are already validated as an engineer. Why is that? Reputable companies, majority of them will ask you if you have already your qualification validated by Engineers Australia, either by the Washington Accord or by the CDR process, the Competency Demonstration Report process. And if you are in Queensland, if you are already RPEQ engineer, a registered professional engineer of Queensland, RPEQ, then it's going to be much less difficult because RPQ engineers are very difficult to recruit. There's not a lot in the market. And with the borders closed in the last 2 years, Engineers Australia, they released an article saying that about 17,000 engineers per year didn't migrate to Australia. So 2 years, you think about 34,000 engineers that didn't come to Australia, which then created a big demand for engineers. But still, there are engineers here in Australia, and there are plenty of engineers. Every time that we advertise positions for engineers, we always have plenty of applications. So we certainly choose somebody here in Australia, and we certainly even can choose engineers that are already validated and with RPQ qualifications as well. But if you have the right set of skills, if you have the right attitude, if you have a good application that will address competencies, especially in the cover letter, as I was talking about. Very important that in your cover letter, you read very carefully the position description of the job that you're applying for, and then there's usually selection criteria, key competencies. Is this job for me? There are some criteria that you need to address. And when you address those criteria, it's important to include evidences and the results that you have achieved, because then you are demonstrating that you're competent in those criteria. Don't do a generic cover letter, because when you do a generic cover letter, the panel members, they usually interpret that you just have that cover letter and you ended up sending to hundreds of job applications. So you need to tailor your cover letter to the position that you're applying for and put specific examples with results and evidences that will demonstrate your competency for that specific job. So that's the thing about the cover letter. And then the other item that's important to talk about is what type of jobs to apply. So if you want to get a job as a professional engineer, obviously, that could be your end goal, to be hired or to get a job as a professional engineer. But if you are an international student that never worked in Australia, is still studying, can just work 20 hours a week, I'd say, and you're not validated yet, I'd say that your chances to get a job as a professional engineer is going to be very slim. Not impossible, obviously. A lot of people, they get a job as a professional engineer without validating, studying, and just working 20 hours a week, but it's very difficult. But you can do things to improve your chances. One thing is to improve your networking. So participate in events now that the borders are open. Organizations like Engineers Australia, the Australian Institute of Project Managers, the Institute of Public Works, they are promoting face-to-face events, and then you can attend those events and increase and improve your networking as well. So you can do that. You can tailorize your CV, you can tailor your cover letter, you can start gathering the evidences to demonstrate in your documentation when you apply for a job. So, but another thing, you can apply for a job that's not for professional engineer. So let's say that you want a job as a professional engineer, but you know that's going to be very competitive. So perhaps you try to apply for a different job, which is close related to an engineer. So let's say a site engineer or an assistant engineer, or even a project management support person, or perhaps a systems, a quality representative. Because those roles, although they are not engineers, but they will be working with engineers in a project. And once you get a job as one of those roles that are close related and will be working closely with an engineer, the engineer will see that you are already a professional engineer, but you are not working as an engineer. So, but they will realize that they can have more performance out of you if you work as an engineer. So that's very important if you can apply for other types of work just to get your foot in the door and start with the industry. Very important to start with the industry and increase your networking within the industry. So let's say that you get a job as a project systems representative, that you're going to look after the quality of the works in a construction site, for example, or in a manufacturing company if you're a mechanical engineer or production engineer. And then you will be doing your job, working very closely with a project manager or a project engineer or a senior engineer, whatever. And obviously you will build a relationship. You will know that person will know you. You'll be talking about things, and you will say that you are a graduate engineer, you graduated already, you're a professional engineer, but because you graduated overseas, it's always a little bit more difficult to get a professional job. And then after some time, obviously you got to do your job very well. The other person can perhaps, if there is an opportunity, you may be offered a job as an engineer. I've got lots of my students that they were working in companies, not as an engineer. Once they got their qualification validated, they've been offered positions as engineers. So that's how you probably, but then obviously you need to be willing to work not as an engineer for some time, so you can build a relationship, you can increase your networking, and then increase your chances to get a job as an engineer. I'll tell you an example. At work, we had a program called, and we still have a program called Women in Construction. And as part of this is to encourage female workers to work within the construction industry. And a few years ago, one of the candidates, and a successful candidate to work as a construction worker, she's actually is an engineer, but she started with us working as a construction worker. Obviously, we knew that she was a qualified engineer, recognized by Engineers Australia already, and we ended up putting her to work in the quality area, doing testing, inspections, etc., etc. After that, we had opportunities as a junior project manager. She applied for that, and then she got the job. She also had opportunities to work in relieving position, higher level positions in other jobs, and she got that. So she's a very good, successful case of somebody, qualified engineer, that started as a construction worker and then spent some time, built a relationship, increased her networking, and then she saw opportunities as a project manager and also as senior engineer. So nowadays, she's working as a senior engineer, and she got there, but she started as a construction worker. So you need to think a little bit outside of the square and think about, all right, I want to be here, but today perhaps I need to start from here at the bottom, and then I will progress until I get there. It happened with me. When I arrived here in 2005, I had a very good job in Brazil. I was an executive of a company. And when I came to Australia, I thought, well, I'm going to apply for some executive positions. And I applied for that, and nobody was even ringing me. So I got really disappointed. And I talked to many people, and they say, "Yeah, Jerson, sorry, but you've got a lot of experience back in your home country, but you don't really have an Australian experience." So I had to downgrade myself, and I applied for few levels lower. I got a good job as a principal engineer at the time, but compared to what I was in Brazil, it was kind of a 5 levels below. But I got a job as a principal engineer. And after that, I got promotion, and nowadays I'm probably 2 levels, still 2 levels below what I was in Brazil. But I'm happy. I have a very good job. I manage a business, a construction company in the government department with almost 250 people. So it's quite a very good job. And I've got very good relationships. My network is very good. So if I want to move on, I can move on. I can apply for any jobs, and I'm pretty sure that I'll get a job. So those are the things that probably you can do to increase your chances to get a professional job in Australia. Double check the questions to see if there is any question there. No question in Instagram. I'll see if there is any question here in Facebook. Yeah. No, there's no question in Facebook, and no more question in YouTube as well. All right, so just conscious of time, I try to keep these sessions to half an hour. And if there's no more questions, I would like to thank you guys very much. Next weekend, next Sunday, is going to be the 13th of February. I'm probably going to talk about another subject related to the engineering qualification validation here in Australia. So thank you very much, guys, and I hope to see you next Sunday, 8:30 p.m. Brisbane time, talking about a subject on engineering qualification validation. Thank you very much, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.